This is so fucking bullish. No one's ever even imagined it would be this bullish. GBTC announcing this baby fund, it's quite important. James Seyfarth, I gotta give all the credit to James because he's the one who was telling me that this was gonna happen and this is a possibility, rather not gonna happen, but is a possibility for the longest time as I was talking about, you know, these ETFs. And I thought, I don't understand how that would work. And here it is, right? They basically launched a baby fund. The baby fund has the 0.2% fee. They seed 30 to 50% of that baby fund with GBTC, and you as an investor, that would make me happy, right? Because now, you know, I look at that and I go, well, if 50% is in BTC, I don't know what the percentage is, but if 50% goes to BTC and I got a 0.2% fee, and I've still got the other amount in GBTC, I got an average fee, I'm pretty happy, right? Well, if you're holding GBTC, like I was holding GBTC, and I was paying a 1.5% fee for them to hold my Bitcoin, I had to pivot out of that because the other funds are 0.2%. So for every $1 million, I'm paying $12,000 a year for no reason, right? So I pivoted out, but now there are GBTC holders who are stuck in for tax reasons, for whatever reasons that they have, that they got to still hold the asset of GBTC. They've now been given a cherry here, where GBTC has said, okay, what we're going to do is launch this sub fund, and we're going to take a portion. I didn't even know this was possible. We're going to take a portion of your GBTC position and seed the new fund BTC with it. So for example, let's say you had $1,000 of GBTC, you may wake up and you got $500 of GBTC, $500 of BTC, except on that $500 of BTC, you're paying a 0.2% fee versus the 1.5% on the GBTC. And this basically tells an investor like, okay, I think that's pretty fair and I'm pretty happy with that. I don't need to take the tax hit. I'm going to get a reduction in my fees on a certain percentage of my holdings. And look what happened. Yesterday I said, I'm looking forward to seeing how these outflows cease up. We had $400 million worth of outflows. Today, GBTC's outflows are $40 million. A 10x reduction. And yesterday was also fantastic because we had $1 billion of net inflows into the funds, and it was like $750, $800 million just for BlackRock alone. And so what's going on here, this is extremely important to pay attention to, because what's going on here is that they are dumping the futures markets, and Zero Hedge has a really good write-up on this. They're dumping the futures prices. People are selling because they're absolutely terrified of what's about to happen. And then the ETFs are gobbling up that Bitcoin at a rip of $1 billion a day. This is so much demand. It's unbelievable. Just to put that into perspective, during the last bull run, all of the capital going in, based on all of my understanding, is like $25 to $35 billion. And right now we're ramping up before the halving to $1 billion of purchasing going on a daily basis just through the ETFs. This is before we get to the sovereign nations, before we get to the oil nations, before we get to the private family offices, before we get to retail, before we get to options markets and market makers on the options side. So if we get $1 billion a day worth of net inflows, you're talking in a year, $252 billion going into these funds, which would take us to a price level we have not even imagined, right? It would take us to a price level that we have not even imagined at this point. So, you know, I want you to start paying attention here and get serious. You need to get to your one Bitcoin. If you've got real estate, you've got assets, you've got equities, this, that, and the other, whatever you've got, you need to get to your one Bitcoin allocation, because this train, this is like the plane is rumbling along the runway right now. Everyone's got their seatbelts on, and this thing hasn't even started lifting yet, right? This is how early we are in the game. Like, everyone is thinking we're so late in the game. No, we're still tumbling down the runway, building up velocity before we actually take off. And when is going to be that takeoff point? I think that takeoff point is at $100,000 from a psychological point of view. Yes, we've broken the previous all-time high, and we've closed above it, and that starts my clock for 40 trading sessions until we're at 100,000, and that puts us at by May 7th, right? And it could be much earlier than that. It could be mid-April, but look, at the end of the day, this demand is not slowing down. The demand is increasing, in fact, and we haven't even started factoring in all these other demand sources that could come through as we ramp up here. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens now as we go into the future. Well, here's one thing that it could be interesting. If they come out and say BTC will have a fee of 10 basis points, 0.1%, right? 0.1%. I predict that you could see inflows into GBTC before that fund is launched, right? Inflows into GBTC before that fund is launched to take advantage of the split that they do on it. So yeah, it's super exciting right now, and I highly recommend that you stay up to date with all of this, because things are moving extremely fast. And if you're not at 1 Bitcoin yet, you need to get to 1 Bitcoin as soon as possible, because this plane is tumbling down the runway now, and the nose is about to lift off, and you're sitting there going, hey, do I invest in this? You're absolutely fucking late. Now is the time to catch up, otherwise you're gonna miss out forever. Subscribe to the channel, and by the way, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.